So Anne Murray is a Downers Grove psychotherapist and pastoral counselor who companions clients on their healing and wholeness journeys to discover their own resources, wisdom, and integrity, and utilizes a combination of traditional talk therapy along with mindfulness-based therapies and EMDR, which is a form of bilateral brain stimulation that helps to release emotional blockages and imbalances and to transform them into positive beliefs. Join me in welcoming Anne Murray.
Hello, is that good? Okay. Well, thanks Dale and Cindy, and thanks to everybody who's here. So yeah, I'm a therapist. I've been practicing for about, like 20 years or so, probably longer. I stopped counting. And it's just been a great honor in my life to do the work that I do and to meet the people that I meet in that work. I could talk about it forever, but I won't because that's not what I'm supposed to do tonight. I think it's like 15 minutes. Let me try. So when Cindy was talking about flow, there's been so many times in my work where I really feel that flow. Like I feel when I'm with somebody, we're connecting, and I can feel, what I consider the Holy Spirit there, and it's just going. And there's other times when that's not the case, and I feel stuck, and they feel stuck. I kind of joke that these are the times for therapists when we think you're talking to somebody and they're struggling, and you're looking at them and you're thinking, wow, they are really in pain, they should probably be in therapy. And then you realize, I'm the therapist. So you go and you learn some new stuff. So I've got a lot of colleagues who have been doing EMDR from the beginning. It's really it's pretty new. It came to be in the late 80s, and it was at first. I think the first time I heard about it was on 2020, which I don't know. Is that even still on? I don't know. But okay, good. It was very informative back then, and it was developed by Robin Shapiro, and sort of almost accidentally. One day she was struggling with some of her own stuff because therapists have stuff too. We're actually the worst. There's another therapist out there and she's laughing because she knows. So she was struggling with her own stuff and she went for a walk and she noticed, you know what, I feel better. And started to think that maybe it was that movement of the left-right. When you go for a walk, it's, there's so many things we do that we alternate the left and right hemisphere. And in that movement, things that are stuck can become unstuck, and the flow can come. So just like, so it's really about an integration. And flow, like when we saw the river going down, it's an integration. And it's, I think we all know, not just in therapy, but in life, how with the joining of the left brain, right brain, we need the creatives, we need the logical, we need our own existing within us, our logical parts to talk to our creative parts, and them to get together and sort of just offer the wisdom that's already there. So that's one of the benefits, I think, of EMDR, or even just thinking of the integration and the flow of that. So I don't know what slides have to. So
I ran the right one.
yeah, so I got to be the mind, and I was really excited about that. But it turns out the mind is very poorly defined. It's talked about. We say we lose it. We're out of it. Like we're gonna mind the baby. But and I think when we talk about the mind, we think about the brain. But the mind is not the brain. And this is so cool because the definition, we're talking about flow, and I'm gonna that Daniel Siegel, I don't know if any of you have heard of him. If you haven't, you should. He's awesome. He's got scholarly books. He's got one of the best parenting books, and he's got one for parenting teens. about the brain, and as he determined the mind, the human mind emerges from patterns in the flow of energy and information within the brain and between brains. The mind is created within the interaction of the internal neurophysiological processes and interpersonal experiences. So our mind is something that exists between us. It's like when we connect. It's when we connect like with the wisdom within, with our left and right brain, and when we connect with the wisdom around us. That was pretty cool. So this next slide, I just like this slide. It really doesn't go with the talk, but it's from Daniel Siegel as well. Because I think the brain is so cool, and I can get really geeked out about it, but then I can't remember like anything that I learned. So I don't know if there's a way that I can send you these.
Is that it? Sorry.
Yeah, it's where you can like the brain hand puppet to sort of understand where basics of the brain stem and anyway. So just for future use. So going back to EMDR. Do we have the next one, Dale? I couldn't like actually make copies. You know how like when you go to a lecture and they print it up and the right way. So that's because I'm right-brained and I am a lefty. Just so you know. Okay, so trauma. So trauma then is, so Robin Shapiro started using it with people who are going through trauma. She started using EMDR to help people to process trauma. And trauma is, like the most simple form, is really an overwhelming experience. It's something that happens to us that we just don't know what to do with. We don't know where to store it. Because bad things happen or sad things happen that we're not traumatized by. We remember that was bad or sad, but it doesn't cause us to, have a pain in our gut or break into a cold sweat. And so trauma is, it's about being overwhelmed by an experience. And we break them into categories like a big T trauma, which, threatened or actual injury, death or sexual assault, exposure, or witnessing a trauma. The car accident, the soldier, the domestic violence victim. These are things that it's really clear that it's traumatic. And then there's the little T traumas, the types of events which exceed our capacity to cope. And I think sometimes like the little T traumas could be, prolonged stress, prolonged unemployment, having a parent who's ill. These are traumatic experiences, and So in therapy, like the big T traumas, they're way easier to work with. If you had a bad car accident, that's easier to help you process the one-time event than, the trauma of like maybe you grew up really poor and you never knew if we were gonna have money for this or money for that, and you had to like hide things from your friends. That kind of stuff is harder to work with, more challenging, and it takes more time. So that's trauma is just, well, you hear it a lot more. Like even like I'm not a trauma therapist. I mean, trauma that's kind of like ugly and big, but I'm like, oh no, I am. And actually now I think using EMDR has helped me to really even embrace it. So moving along. Oh, trauma. So I love that guy. Okay, so I think like the little T traumas, we go through life with these like hang-ups or fears, and it's not debilitating, but it's really hard. And we just think, oh, this is fine. I'm like, no, it's not fine. You don't have to be, so fearful of leaving your house, or so fearful of, that maybe somebody's going to make fun of you because of how you dressed, or you burped in a lunch meeting, whatever. So anyway, I just love that guy. It's not fine. All right. So EMDR, the name, so eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, doesn't really explain real well what happens. Eye movements are a form of, that's the bilateral stimulation. So when Robin Shapiro was working with her first patients, she would have them recall a traumatic or anxiety-provoking incident, and she would wave her fingers in front of their eyes. And their eyes would go back and forth, and she would check in again with them with how they were feeling, and notice that after a period of time of being able to think about the traumatic event and having the bilateral stimulation, that they were feeling less symptomatic. In EMDR, we always start out with rating, like you rate the intensity of the pain. So as like the pain scale that you've seen in the hospital, like how much does it hurt, you know? So you get that number. So like let's say it's a 10. You know, like there was a breakup and I can't get over the look on his face when he broke up with me. This didn't happen to me, I swear. And it feels so bad, and so as you process the event or a memory or a picture in your mind from the event, with getting the bilateral stimulation, you notice that, okay, maybe it feels like a 6 now. And the goal is to get it to 0. And sometimes you get there, but almost always you get a little bit better. So it's what it is. It's helping the brain to do what it needs to do, what it can do. Like we're really equipped to be whole and healthy. But again, when a trauma gets stuck and we're overwhelmed, we need a little bit of help to it just says digest or dislodge that event and go back to being whole, peaceful, calm. So the way that most people, the bilateral stimulation, some people still do eye movements. I do tactile, where I have people hold these little tappers and they buzz back and forth, and they're really cool. And they can be actually kind of relaxing. Some people just like to hold them, do the whole session, because there's something about, again, that left-right stimulation that's also calming, because it doesn't just help with processing trauma, it can help to calm the nervous system. And so the next slide. Okay, so like literally, that's bilateral stimulation, going for a walk with a friend and talking about, bad things happened in the 100-acre forest, but I don't think there was much trauma because they could process. They had someone to talk about. Anyway, so. I was supposed to give like a signal and I didn't do that. Okay, so these beautiful people are my parents, Fran and Walter. They're lovely and loving people. My mother's still alive, but my father's been gone for about 17 years. So they are two youngest who got married. And I don't know if any of you are youngest married to a youngest, but it can have its challenges, and they went on to have 5 children in 7 years. And my dad worked nights. And they're also Irish. And anything, you'll see why I'm bringing this up. So when I went for my first training, to be trained as an EMDR therapist, you have to be, have it done to you. And you kind of have to make yourself kind of vulnerable to do that. Which I decided I wasn't going to make myself vulnerable. I was going to be very, left brain analytical, and I picked a real high functioning trauma. I had said that I was training for like a half marathon, and I was getting kind of wigged out about it, like thinking I can't do this. Is this too hard? Which didn't make sense because I've run the distance and I ran before, but it was really like bothering me. Like I feel it in my stomach. Like, oh, it's going to be hard. I can't do it. So I decided to when it was my turn to be the therapist, because it'd be client, therapist, and observer. I said, well, here's my problem, and it was a very high functioning one. I'm not a basket case. I'm really, quite well. They were told me to get the picture of the trauma. So the trauma, it wasn't a trauma, it was an anxiety-provoking image of me like being carted off on a golf course, at a golf cart, like from the run, because I couldn't do it, with the Gatorade. I don't know if you've ever seen those. So I said, okay, I'll think about that, and then my therapist waved their fingers in front of my eyes, and what do you see? And it's very organic. You just, whatever comes up is what comes up. And there's no right or wrong. So we eventually, as he did some more sets, I get a picture of myself, and I'm like 4. I'm like, what the hell? I'm not supposed to be 4. I'm 40 something, and I am training for a half marathon because I'm very high functioning. So the next picture, I'm the one with the flat pants. That's me about that age. The next picture, and this is something I remember, so it's not suppressed, but I was home alone with my parents were home. My siblings were at my aunt's house, and we were going to go over there, and I was really excited, and I got dressed up, and I put on this dress. It was a knit sweater dress, which they're back now. And it was striped, and it said stripes. And I remember looking at the mirror thinking, wow, I have got this really cool dress. I look kind of cool. This is awesome. And then I heard a glass break. And I got scared. And I thought, but I should do something. I should go see what's going on. And I went out into the hall, and my parents had gotten into a fight. And it wasn't a domestic violence case. It's more like they were two youngest, and they were drinking, and it got out of hand, and I went out there, and I saw them, they were kind of like shocked to, not quite sobriety, but what have we done? And I immediately went back to the closet, because there was a part of me that thought I could take care of this, I could handle it, and I got overwhelmed. So what we sort of had decided, I linked together in my mind, thinking of something special, something bad's going to happen. So sort of signing up for the half marathon was that, so because it was at Disney, it was like, it's expensive and time consuming. Like, who the hell do you think you are to do that? And so they were linked. And I had no idea. And that's kind of what happens in the process. Like especially those small T traumas where you're stuck. You go to an event that might be where you got stuck. And so we continued on to process and until it felt better. And then one of the things that we did with EMDR2 is we call it installation, where if there's a negative memory from your childhood or from whenever, you can sort of rewire it or rewrite it. And we thought, okay, if you're in the closet and you're 4 years old, who would you want in the closet? Who could help you? So the next slide. It's my Auntie Una, and she was like just an angel in my life. We imagined her being there and what she would have done. And I'm so grateful that I could imagine an actual person in my life, because not everybody's lucky enough to think of who could have gotten out of the closet. So it was just really a powerful experience for me. And I just thought I'd share a little bit with that, just to kind of demonstrate how that can work. I'm not sure how am I doing for time? You have no idea. So the integration. So I love the Inside Out. The next slides are kind of silly. They're not really, but who saw this movie? Okay, it's all about this. It's all about integration. It's about sadness and joy being together. It's and how beautiful we work when we're in concert. And that's one of the things that EMDR can do to help that flow of communication and that flow of just really a flow of energy within. And I'm not going to read this, but it's the Guest House by Rumi, and which again is about welcoming the thoughts, welcoming the negative, the painful. And I think when we're not in flow, we stop the thoughts. So this is about opening up and welcoming in. And you know what? Oh, okay. That's spiral. this was an experiential thing. You want to do it? Okay, cool. Okay, so this is kind of like a takeaway. This is sort of it's an EMDR technique. Like we're all EMDR therapists learn this, and it's a way like when you get stuck in a negative thought or an annoyance, and you need to shift out of it, because I don't know if that happens to you. It happens to me all the time. Like, why am I so mad? Or why does this bug me? Or why am I being so mean to that person in my head? You know. So if we can collectively do this would be so like, wow, this is like really kind of new age. But just imagine something on a scale from 1 to 10 that annoys you. Like toothpaste on the sink annoying, not too loaded, Okay. Do you got it? Is everybody annoyed? Nice, okay. Now I want you to imagine a color. Like, what color would that annoyance be? Is it like pukey green or black or red? A lot of people say red, yeah. So with this, you might want to close your eyes and imagine a spiral, and it's going to go clockwise. So you're going to imagine that whatever color that is, spiraling, going clockwise from the outside to the center. And now reverse the spiral, going from the center out, counterclockwise. And check in and see if there's been any shift. If there's been any, like, able to let go just a little bit. Isn't that cool? So, yeah. So, I think, you should really have speakers who can print out their handouts better. I'm good, yeah.
Thank you, Anne. That was very helpful. So full disclosure, and I have to say, my left brain told me not to say this, but my right brain said, go ahead, tell him. So full disclosure, I had gone to Anne some years ago when I had a cancer diagnosis that totally locked me up. I'm usually a very flowy person, but I became like super rigid. So mine was skin cancer. So I knew every detail about, what is the ozone today and what SPF should I wear, that it was debilitating. And so something like EMDR was really helpful to get that moving back and forth again. But tell us more, because we've talked about this, because again, the hope is I think the awareness to know what Anne was saying about big traumas or little traumas, that we all have those things that, throw us for a loop or whatever. And I think whether you actually do EMDR or not, it's just the awareness of when you feel very rigid or very closed off, or if you're no boundaries, and that just cultivating that awareness in yourself. But how in your everyday life, beyond the awareness, what kinds of things can people do to generate some of that flow?
I think the most important thing to do is have compassion for yourself, and and everybody else, and be a little bit curious. Compassion that's the welcome mat to the guest house. So, and even little tricks like this, and with the spiral, but also how you talk to yourself. Use a loving voice, it's fine, it's okay, you got it, you're just tired. I am so nice to myself when I talk to myself. And it's just, I don't know when it happened. It was a few years ago, the last minivan, I remember driving it, and I'm like, just stop. Why are you beating so I think when you get stuck, the compassion. And go for a walk with a friend. and tell them. And if you don't have a friend who you can tell, find one, or call a therapist, or you get connected. Go to Bible study, go to yoga. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think, again, this is about your everyday life. So again, think about like parenting, right? We need the flow of grace, but we need the form of discipline. And again, just trying to name it, as you go. So Anne, thank you very much.